or what is called the non-resident landlords. For you who is a diaspora, is on the gross. So no deductions allowed, no expenses claims allowed, and no mortgage relief. VAT may apply. It's about that time when we have to file our returns again with the KRA, that's the tax returns. And if you are Kenyan living and working in the UK, there is a high chance you either own a property back home or you're planning to own one. It's a good thing. You earn in pounds, you invest in Kenya, you build long-term wealth. But you do know, or you probably don't know, that owning property in Kenya while living in the UK creates two-country tax obligation. And if you're not careful with it, you may find yourself running into penalties and being served with those papers asking you to pay an obligation, probably in UK, or an obligation in Kenya, and you're not aware, or you simply ignored, or you assumed that KRA will not catch up with you. Now today, let's just quickly have a look at how this works. That's the tax obligations. So the starting point, will be answering some few questions, and one of the questions will be, where are you taxed? Of course, you know that if you're a tax resident in the UK, or if you live in the UK, you are a tax resident of the UK. That means the UK taxes you on all your incomes worldwide, including your rental income from Kenya. And that is why you need to be keen so that you don't find yourself paying double taxes. So in Kenya, the monthly rental income, which is usually known as the MRI rate, is now at 7.5% of the gross rent. So you don't deduct anything. The amount that enters into your account, you're supposed to pay 7.5%. And it is usually treated as what you call the final tax. So at the end of the year, so like people are preparing now to do the returns, they don't have to do a return on these ones because it's already done every month. I think they're supposed to file it by 20th of every month. However, if you don't live in Kenya, if you're a non-resident, then this does not apply to you. But remember, if you have stayed in Kenya for 183 days, KRA can consider you a resident, and this may apply to you. But if you've not, or you don't own a permanent home in Kenya where you overstay there for a period of time, then this will not apply to you. So, for you who is a diaspora person who lives and works in the UK, what applies to you is a non-resident tax bracket, which is what is called the non-resident landlords, who are subject to 30% withholding on gross rent, on the gross rent, and which is a final tax. Of course, that sounds punitive, isn't it? And one of the most important things to note is that this 30% tax, residential tax, is the tax bracket under that is on the gross. So no deductions allowed, no expenses claims allowed, and no mortgage relief. So you pay all of it. And on top of this, VAT may apply. So dependent on the kind of holding you have, the asset that you hold. So let's say this, your Kenyan rental estate, rental income, it's taxable in Kenya, but also reportable in the UK. Remember we talked about VAT, yeah? So this only applies to rental income that is 5 million shillings and above per year. And the property is commercial. So this is the caveat. It is commercial. Residential, they don't apply VAT. But if their building is a commercial one, then there will be a 16% on rent. So generally every other residential are exempt, are VAT exempt. Now, because you live in the UK and you own a property in Nairobi or in Nakuru or in Mombasa or anywhere else in Kenya, and you earn about 1 million shillings per year from that rental property, Kenya KRA will demand that you pay them 30%, 300,000. But remember, I said that you have to report to the UK tax regime about the whatever you're earning from the rental properties in Kenya. Yeah. So they will check this and see that does this fall within the band. Assume the band is 20%. So how much tax have you paid in Kenya vis-a-vis how much tax would you have paid here in the UK for the same rental income? So if the tax obligation that you've paid back in Kenya is higher than what you would have paid here were you to declare it here, then you don't have to pay anything in the UK. But unfortunately, there is no refund. They also not give you any refund. The only thing they require you to do is to declare that you have a rental income to HMRC. That's the HM Revenue and Customs. Then the other thing that you need to do is do a tax, what we call the foreign tax credit relief. Apply for that so that you don't get double taxed. Very important. So the key rule to note here is that the UK will tax your global income, but deduct tax already paid in Kenya. So how is KRA enforcing this tax collection? So it is increasingly using land registry to know who is the owner of the property. So there is that integration that is happening. And there is the banking records. So they have capability of checking your bank records and see how much money has come in. And then there is the tenant verification. So they will ask the tenant, who is your landlord? And then they will go back now to their records and try to figure out whether you've been filing your returns or not. Now, KRA may enforce their tax collection by asking for rental records. So you need to keep this one very carefully, because if you don't have rental records, it means that they can assume that the building was 100% occupied and they will levy tax assuming that the building for the whole year was at 100%, level of occupation. And then they will use third-party data, banks and tenants, and they have also been allowed to do what is called the backdated assessment. So they'll go back 2, 3, 4 years when you had not, filed for your tax. So after they have done that, they will issue demands, and the courts have upheld this in Kenya. They will issue demands and enforce the tax collection. Hence, it is paramount for you as a non-resident landlord to know where you fall. And you need to understand this. Talk to your accountant, check, with the people back home where you fall, just to know that how much tax are you supposed to be paying and how can you get a relief here in the UK in terms of, the HMRC will not come for you saying that you have income back in Kenya, because they continue doing the investigations and they may just nab you. It doesn't happen easily, but it can happen. So, but you need to understand where you are at so that you have defense that you can deal with and keep your records very well, very safely. So, but remember, you as a non-resident, do not think what applies to you is a 7.5%. Between 288,000 and 15 million Kenya shillings tax bracket, MRI, monthly rent income tax. No. For you as a non-resident, what applies to you is the 30% of the gross rental income. That applies to you as a non-resident. So I know it's unfair, but that is what applies. that is what applies to you. And the other thing that you have to always be keen about is that you must declare in the UK, but claim that relief, the one you talked about up there. You have to claim it so that at least you don't get double taxed on it. So as we approach June, when you're supposed to do your tax returns, please, it is important to check and find out where you lie. You don't want to be hit by a 5 million Kenya shillings tax demand. And they start coming, sealing your building, saying they want to enforce tax collection and all those kind of things. Remember, they're also using digital systems, which is called the ERITS, ERITS. So it's just a way of making sure that you don't evade the tax that you're supposed to pay for rental income in Kenya. So don't be ignorant, and you should never be ignorant or assume that you don't need to pay taxes, or the KRA will not know that you have rental income in Kenya. They are very aggressive. They know what they are doing. They are using very crude methods to get to know who is the landlord. And, of course, your KRA pin is attached to all those kind of things. So you need to be careful. And especially if you're living in the diaspora, not just in the UK, sorry. If you're living in the US or the Australia, it's something to check how much you're supposed to pay for tax. You don't need to sweat so much and then the government comes over and takes over your property. It's not good. So just for information purposes, but as a caveat, this is not financial advice. This is just to help you, know that there are obligations you need to look at before June, end of June, so that you don't get caught off guard. So if you need to talk to a professional, talk to your accountant, talk to the professional tax professionals back in Kenya or in here, and then you get to understand where you live in. Adios. God bless you. But before I go, visit our website. It's called the Golden Tie Africa. Just visit our website and learn more about taxes and things generally to do with finances in Africa in general. Thank you, and thank you for your support. Subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, and share for more. Adios.